Hi, I'm Ross Benjamin. It's Wednesday, November 25th, the day before Thanksgiving. You're joining us on another edition of the Winner's Circle with myself, Ross Benjamin, and my trusted co-host, Mr. Chip Chirimbes, that smiling, handsome fool on the other end of the video there. Chipper, happy Thanksgiving ahead of time. And again, I can speak for you when I say this to the audience. We won't be talking to you tomorrow, so we like to see all of you have a very happy Thanksgiving. Be safe, be merry, and count your blessings, because we in spite of this tough year, Chipper, we all have a lot to be thankful for.
Yes, and thank you, by the way, Ross. Yes, Thanksgiving. I mean, we should actually be thinking about it. Usually it's more, say, heartwarming during Christmas holidays, and we're thinking about family, but we do have a lot to be thankful for in spite of what's going on in the world around us. And we've got football on Thanksgiving. Well, what's left of it anyway.
Yeah, right.
And we'll see where, I feel like we're picking the bones at the end of the turkey, at the end of the meal right now.
Yeah. If you don't know what Chip means, a couple hours ago, ESPN announced that the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers game on Sunday night, a much anticipated matchup in the AFC North, was canceled. I'm not sure if they gave us a rescheduled date yet. I think Chip said that they're looking at possibly Sunday as a rescheduled date. Okay, so again, I don't know that, or we don't know that for a fact, but let's plan on that game on Sunday. But once again, I had a 10-star top play total on that contest, and Chip had a best bet side on that game. So it's been a pattern, Chip, over the last few weeks. I'm starting to think it's a damn conspiracy, buddy.
We have to call in some friends. But I really, we've lost some key games. I mean, top games and top releases and now all of a sudden everything you have to go searching a little bit more intently, shall we say. But we've got nothing in college on Friday, and now we've got the 2 pro games. When I mean nothing worthwhile. And but Friday's a pretty good slate for us, Ross. And I think
college football, yes, I agree, Chipper. And first of all, Chip, if you don't mind, let's touch upon our final thoughts on these Thursday matchups, if we have any. If you don't want to elaborate, that's fine as well. Detroit and Houston, not much to speak of here. Houston is now up to a 3-point favorite. I think they were 2.5 when we talked on Tuesday on this matter. And the total has gone down from 52 to 51. Any thoughts, Chipper?
Yeah, the enigma here is, how Detroit ever win 4 games? That's what I want to know. They're terrible. Now, at home Thanksgiving, usually people come running to their side, but I don't think anybody wants any part of them scoring absolutely 0 points against Carolina and having 10 first downs, Ross. They come into this really crippled. I have to think, if they have any kind of professional pride, they should show up to play. Whether they're talented enough or good enough to win, that's a whole nother story. But you should get some effort out of the Lions this week.
Yeah, I mean, you asked me to look up these Thanksgiving statistics, and I did. Actually, the Lions are 4-13 straight up in their last 17 Thanksgiving Day games, which are all played at home. And Chipper, when they're an underdog, they're even worse than that. There's a parameter of an underdog. I want to say 7 or less, where they're 0-8 ATS during that specific time period. So not a bargain, right, Chip?
Well, it's and I don't like getting involved in that early game, as it is, because you get pounded there, it sort of ruins the whole day. So I was hoping to be able to use the late game, and now I think I'm forced into a slide on this early game, whether I like it or not. So,
well, my buddy Chipper's on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast, so his interpretation of early games is much different than mine. But I certainly know what he means, and there's nothing like getting off to the day with a good start. It just, your frame of mind is positive the rest of the way. Yeah. And when you get off to that bad start, you start to feel the pressure a little bit as the day mounts. So I certainly would agree with that logic. How about the Washington-Dallas game? Yes, I did look up Dallas on Thanksgiving Day, and yes, they have been pretty good at home on Thanksgiving. They
Right.
did lose last year to Buffalo, by the way, and they lost badly as a favorite in that game. But
Aren't you proud of that one?
yeah, I'm very proud. I was beating on my chest left and right during that game. So anyway, real key game in the NFC East,
Yeah.
believe it or not, between 2, 3, and 7 teams that are just a half a game out of first place, believe it or not. And the Dallas Cowboys opened as a 2-point favorite. They're up to 3, and that total has gone from 47 to 46. Chipper, it's basically the same discussion we had on Tuesday. Any additional thoughts you'd like to share with the viewers?
I revamped the last meeting they had between these two, and the dominance that the DC Swampers over the Cowboys had was incredible. I mean, they really controlled the game, the time of the clock, first downs, and everything. And I'm wondering, have they dropped that much? Has Dallas improved that much? I mean, Andy Dalton returning has really helped them, but they're a very meager favorite here. That's a very small favorite after all the numbers and the stats you just gave me about how their dominance on Thanksgiving Day. And they're only a 3-point favorite against the Washington team that, like the Cowboys, has only won 3 games.
Yeah.
So, it's a short. Now, people expected Dallas to be on their way to the Super Bowl this year, and look at them.
Well, I was high on them at the beginning of the year, I got to admit, but, I based that on Dak Prescott. Even with Dak Prescott, they were a 500 team, though. The thing is, Chip, you look at where this point spread is, like you just alluded to, and it's pretty much if you look at the power ratings from the bookmakers, they're virtually saying this is a dead even game. You're just allotting the additional points to Dallas for the home field.
I agree. It's how they're interpreting it. And, I'm wondering if the public is seeing it the same way. There's not too much to get enthusiastic about with Dallas, but, they did beat Minnesota at Minnesota, and that's a difficult thing to do. I mean, the Vikings not only have a tremendous straight-up home record, but an outrageous point spread home record at home. For them to lose the game outright to the Cowboys is an anomaly in that much as far as playing in Minnesota. Have the Cowboys sort of rallied the forces here? I guess we'll have to watch tomorrow and find out. And I think Washington's a lot tougher than people give him credit for. This Antonio Gibson is a running back from Memphis and gives them a lot of life on offense. They're number 6 on defense, Ross, and they seem to be able to stop the run. So interesting game. I'm looking forward to that one. I'm certainly going to be a last game of the day we probably watch.
I glad you brought that up. Antonio Gibson.
Yep.
And he's really, really shined this year for Redskins on a team that's been pretty much lackluster on offense. Dallas is allowing 154 yards rushing per game, Chip. Just a note, you know what I mean? And you mentioned Antonio Gibson. In that first matchup, won by Washington, I believe 25-3 or somewhere thereabouts.
Yeah,
it was a blowout. Okay. Dallas only had 140 total yards. And Chip brought up Washington's defense, number 6 in total yards, 33 sacks in 10 games thus far. Very underrated unit that we probably would be hearing a lot more about, if not for the fact that they're 3-7 right now. But revenge could go a long way on the side of Dallas in this particular matchup. Look, Andy Dalton, that's the game. He went down with a concussion in the first matchup. And they weren't doing anything with him at quarterback at that time anyway. But my point being, Chip, is Andy Dalton really played well last week at Minnesota. And to Chip's point, that was a Minnesota team under Mike Zimmer that had gone 21-3 against the spread as a non-division home favorite of 13 or less, which they were in that game. And Dallas knocked them off. So that was a rare occurrence. But if I could make one more point, let's not forget the Dallas offensive skill position players, Chipper, are very good. Yeah. And if Andy Dalton can play similar to what he did last week, in this division anyway, they're going to be a tough out.
Ross, Elliott hasn't had the kind of season we had expected, and he's done something that he hasn't done in the past. He's given the ball up a few times.
Yeah.
He's dropped and fumbled it, and that's probably part of the problems with Dallas. But with only 3 wins at this point in the season, everyone's like, I say in super shock, not just, a
Yeah,
surprise. I
yeah.
mean,
But again, the division's right there for the taking, right, Chip?
yeah.
In Ezekiel Elliott's defense, which is going to sound like an oxymoron since he plays offense, the offensive line has not been the caliber it has been in years past, be it players retiring, hurt, or going elsewhere. And Dallas has had to play from behind for most of the season, which sometimes predicates abandoning the run game. Yes, exactly. So again, we'll see. Should be. I'm looking forward to this matchup. You know what I mean? It makes it a little better when 3-7 teams are playing, and the only game that could be watched, and it's for something. You know what I mean? If there's a silver lining.
It actually might be for the division lead. I mean, got Philadelphia playing Seattle this weekend, so who knows?
Yeah, and the New York Football Giants. Watch out, baby. They're alive. They're alive and well. Chip's old team that he used to go see play at Yankee Stadium. Now I'm showing his age now. All right, let's look at Friday. Again, this Notre Dame, North Carolina matchup, not much different to report. Notre Dame is still being hammered, receiving the majority of the volume of bets as well as the money being placed on them. North Carolina, look, Chip, they're 6-2. They got upset by Florida State in that game that you had Florida State. But if you well remember, they were way down at the half, and they just fell short, losing by 3 in a furious second half rally. Yeah. And then they lose by 3 to
Virginia.
Virginia, another game that you had. So this team is 6-2. With a little bit of luck, they could be 8-0. Now, having said that, Notre Dame's defense might be the difference here. North Carolina could score with anybody.
Yes.
But the problem is, Chip, they've given up over 40 points a game in their last 3 outings. So, again, do you have anything that you could add that you didn't already on Tuesday?
It's going to be a matchup, like you said, of a strength. North Carolina's offense. I mean, I think they're scoring like close 43 points a game or somewhere. And averaging almost 500 yards a game. And Notre Dame's got a much stronger defense. But, in today's day and age out there, these teams that just put up points, if Notre Dame controls the ball, and we see Ian Book continue to mature and grow out there and control the ball and the offense the way he has, that's what Notre Dame needs to do, because if they give up the ball and surrender the ball at any point in time, and you give this Tar Heel team enough opportunities, they're going to score eventually on you.
Yeah, and this is a Notre Dame team that runs the ball very well behind a veteran offensive line chipper. And you know what they say about a good running game? Sometimes it serves as your best defense, because especially against an explosive offensive team like North Carolina, if you can control time of possession, you limit their offensive possessions. So I think that's going to be the key. If North Carolina wants to upset Notre Dame in this game, they're not going to do it in a shootout style. They're going to have to get some stops defensively. Specifically, they're going to have to stop the run, in my opinion. So enough of that game. All right. One game that intrigues me, Chipper, and the more I look at this game, the more I'm starting to lean toward the underdog, is a rivalry game, Oregon State, on Friday evening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Oregon has held steady as a 13.5-point favorite in this game. The Oregon State Beavers look to be a much improved team than the versions we've seen in recent years past, I should say. What's your take?
I looked at the game. My first instinct was that the number was pretty high. I was very fortunate to play UCLA against Oregon last week and got the money, and was really never in jeopardy there. But this Oregon team scores points in bunches. We know that they're very powerful. Oregon State, their finest asset is their running game, Ross, and I think their passing game is that weak that they're going to have to move the ball on the ground and control the ball, the time of possession, like you mentioned before. Because if you give this Oregon team enough shots, they're gonna, and I'll tell you something. I think Oregon, if they had the opportunity, not just because it's their rival, but because the limited number of games they played and the lack of respect that
Right.
Pac-12 is getting, they're 19th in the nation. And I'll tell you, I know they're a lot better than that. I've seen them play.
Well, I
And
got them rated number 9 right now. So,
is that where it is?
yeah, they're number 9. And to
Okay.
your point, though, Chipper, you're right. Because with a very limited schedule, they have a lot of ground to make up. And to impress the committee, these are the types of games where you need to maybe pile up some style points. So if they get a big lead in this game, I don't being a rivalry too. I don't see Oregon letting her foot off the pedal, kind of thing.
No.
So we'll see. Again, Oregon State, Chip made a great point. They're very good at running the ball, and that might be their key if they want to stay in the game. Iowa State, Texas, Chipper, number 15, Iowa State, number 20, Texas. Texas opened as a 2-point favorite, Chipper, and they're now in some places a 1-point underdog, in a couple other places a pick. And so what's your take here? I mean,
well, my first instinct when I saw the game, and I you've turned me on to this Iowa State team early in the year, and they had a couple of big point spread victories for us. And of course, they've also fallen short as the season moved on at different times. But when I saw that Texas was such a small favorite, my first instinct was that they're giving Iowa State a really good chance to win this game.
Yeah.
And then the more I looked at it, Ross, I felt like more than Iowa State has a chance to win this game. I thought that the public sentiment and when you compare the two teams and you look at it, that Iowa State would be the favorite, and now they are. They're the public's favorite, and that's why this line has moved, I believe.
Yeah.
And Texas, they've helped us out at times at home, and they just, like so many of these other teams out there, they need to learn to tackle somebody, Ross.
That's their problem, Chip.
Yeah.
It has been under Tom Herman since the beginning of his tenure.
So it's Iowa State, though. I mean, they like I said, it's hard to play against them because how they've helped us in times when we had them laying points, and they came out and they just won for us. So it's a tough game to make a call right now. I've certainly looked on it. I can tell you my opinion has moved more toward the Longhorns, but it's a very difficult move to make a play on that team, knowing how the Cyclones have been so good to us already this season.
Well, if you're looking for the degree of urgency, Iowa State is 6-1 in the Big 12, Oklahoma is 5-2, and Texas is 5-2. Yeah. So Iowa State actually has a little bit of room for error, Chip, because if they lose this game and still win the remaining game, there's going to be in a Big 12 championship game. Okay. Whereas Texas, if they lose, they're eliminated. So if you want to use that theory or philosophy that the team with more urgency and desperation in a virtual even game has an advantage, especially on their home field, that might be the way you want to look at it. So just
I think now that you brought that up, I think that probably was a key factor in why they opened up the favorite in this game.
Yep, exactly. And boy, oh boy, though, Iowa State's defense, if you look at their statistics defensively, they've really have been progressively getting better, especially over the last 3 weeks. They've been very, very good. We'll touch upon this real quickly. Yeah. We talked about it on, today is Wednesday. We talked about this on Monday. Iowa at home against Nebraska. Iowa, a 13.5-point favorite. I don't know, Chip. To me, this seems like the line is a little bit too low when you look at both of these teams and the directions they're heading. I mean, Iowa has won 3 in a row. They covered all 3. They dominated in all 3. They only allowed 35 points in those 3 games. They won decisively, like I mentioned. And Nebraska coming off a really terrible performance at home in which they were blown out by Illinois. And the Huskers were a 17-point favorite in that game, Chip. Anything added you wanted to that you already said already?
No, well, Iowa team starts out losing their first 2. They were favored to beat Purdue at Purdue, and the public was very enamored with them. came with them. They outgained the Boilermakers, but lost the game. Then they come up against a really tough Northwestern team, outgain the Wildcats decisively, and lose the game.
Yeah.
Now they put together 3 straight wins. I'm wondering if they're going to be able to maintain their mojo here after coming off the big win last week against Penn State. I mean, they broke my 134-year trend, Ross, and I wasn't too happy about the win for them. But
Yeah.
but you know, I'm thinking more along the lines of the Cornhuskers rebounding because of how humiliated and embarrassed they were to have a team like Illinois run for 285 yards against them in their own backyard. I think they're going to suck it up this week and give it. They have to. I mean, the way Iowa runs the ball, this team can get annihilated and blown out once again. And I just think Nebraska, for old time's sake, is going to come to play. I don't know if they have the talent to be able to stay at the level with the Hawkeyes.
Yeah.
But I think the number's high, and early start, noon Eastern. I would have a lean on Nebraska.
1 o'clock Eastern, buddy. You get another hour's sleep. Maybe that'll change your mind. Now that it starts an hour later.
That gives me an extra hour to stay out later at night. That's all.
Anyway, good points, Chipper. Nebraska 1-3 on the year. Their win was against Penn State at home. However, that win does not look as large as it might have looked at the beginning of the year. Penn State now 0-5, and that win was sort of a little bit of fool's gold, Chip, as Nebraska was outgained by over 200 yards in that contest by Penn State, which has been the Nittany Lions' MO. They just self-destruct with turnovers and penalties and missed opportunities and missed field goals. So, again, Penn State, really tough year. Iowa clearly better on paper, on their home field especially, but that doesn't always equate to ATS wins, right, Chipper? I mean, we've been doing this way too long.
Absolutely. Like 2 weeks ago, I did have Nebraska against Penn State, and Penn State did outplay them so much. And that's why I was able to desirable to come back with Penn State. Said they're going to win a game. They were really close. They're playing good football. And then they got totally annihilated. But, that's the name of the game. That's why we call it gambling. Iowa is a hot club right now. They've got the mojo going for them. But, Ross, they don't have to win by 14. They can win this game by 10. They can actually be up. Right. They can be up at 17, and Nebraska can come in the fourth quarter and score some points. So my instinct here would be to take the points, particularly after the way Nebraska just was so embarrassed last week.
Yeah, they were. That was humiliating for not only them, their fan base as well, and the university, who's takes such pride in their football program. Saturday, Pittsburgh at Clemson. I don't ordinarily want to talk about a line when a team is minus 24 like Clemson is right now. But, Chip, I got a sneaky feeling here that the Panthers can get inside this number. Kenny Pickett is back at quarterback. Right. He makes a world of difference. He had a great game last week against Virginia Tech in a game that Virginia Tech went from a 3-point favorite to a 6-point favorite and still got blown out. In Clemson, they've looked a little vulnerable at times of late. BC gave them a hard time. Syracuse gave them a hard time for 3 quarters. They lost to Notre Dame. I mean, maybe they're not as invincible as they've been in years past. Having said that, like you just alluded to, Chip, they don't have to, they only have to win the game by 14 or 17 points to stay alive. But I just think the 24 might be a heavy number. Your thoughts?
Well, everything quarterbacks should be returning, and that should help the Tigers. But this Pittsburgh team has come alive, and like you said, with Pickett, how do you pronounce his name at quarterback?
Pickett. Kenny Pickett.
Okay, that's kind of a bogus name for a quarterback, though. But, they went in, and I was surprised at the way they handled Virginia Tech. But then again, you and I know everybody handles Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be from the Flames to anything, and you're going to take them down. And I'm glad we both avoided that game last week. Panthers been very impressive, except for the game against Notre Dame, where the Irish just totally dominated them. I think the final was 49-3.
They crushed them. Yeah, and Pickett wasn't available for that game, but it wouldn't have mattered.
And I like teams that if they play big time teams and they get blown out and they get another opportunity to play another high tier team, I think they're going to be more ready for it. They're going to be better prepared. They know what to expect. And I think that maybe Pittsburgh can keep this one a lot closer than the odds makers have said. Clemson's not a 31-point favorite here, but they are at home. And I think Pittsburgh has enough tools to keep this one close. Can they stop Clemson defensively?
Yeah, well, their defense is good, okay? The problem is with their defense is when Pickett was out of the lineup especially, they weren't able to sustain much offensively in terms of drive and time of possession, and they just got worn down, especially when you face a team like Notre Dame who runs the ball so well and can wear you down with that big offensive line. So we'll see. I mean, I'm not going to go out on a limb and call for the upset here, even though about 5 or 6 years ago, the Panthers went into Clemson and knocked them off as a 4-touchdown underdog with a quarterback named Nathan Peterman. Wow. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. Oklahoma, number 14 at West Virginia. I'm anticipating this to be one of the most heavily bet games of the day for several reasons, Chip, that I don't have time to elaborate on, but I think you know where I'm going with it. Oklahoma opened as a 10.5-point favorite. They remain a 10.5-point favorite. There are a couple books I'm seeing an 11. The money seems to be split right down the middle in this game. West Virginia, not your typical Big 12 defense. Boy, oh boy, they could stop people. The question mark's going to be, are they going to be able to score enough points? Because you're not going to hold Oklahoma to 17 points like you're holding teams to on the year. So your thoughts, Chip?
My thoughts are both that the strong points for West Virginia is they're playing at home and their defense. They have a great rushing defense, and they're going to have to come and rise here. I got beat against both these clubs in the last 2 weeks. I tried to be a smart guy and get over on West Virginia when TCU came in, and the Horned Frogs just weren't up to the task. And, of course, Oklahoma State, after losing their quarterback, I should have been more cognizant and believed that their defense would stop the Sooners, which it couldn't. But I think this Mountaineer defense might be able to. I think that if they can shut down the running game, maybe they'll have a decent shot. I am a little bit surprised, Ross, that the line is as high as it is, considering West Virginia's home record. And I think even this year, I think they're like 4-0. And traditionally, they've always played very, very well at home, and then going on the road and getting blown out by Kansas State or Oklahoma State, wherever they may be. But traditionally, they've been really good at home. And I'm thinking with their really strong defense, which is probably their strongest suit, they might be able to make a game of this.
Yeah. 4-0 straight up in ATS at home this year, Chip. You're right. You got to think about that when you're getting a double-digit number as a home dog. But again, I think this is an accurate line. I think Oklahoma right now, if you started the year, take away that 1 and 2 start, they might be a top 5 team right now, if not for that, because that's how well they're playing at this particular moment in time. Anyway, next game, Maryland at Indiana. Now, this intrigues me, Chipper, because Maryland's coming off a cancellation due to COVID-19. Indiana, they started the year 4-0. They were ranked number 9. They gave Ohio State all they can handle in Columbus last week as a 21-point dog. They lose 42-35. Even more impressive was the fact that they were down 35-7 in the second half of that game and did not quit. But this is a Maryland team that's rested, and they've won back-to-back games as double-digit underdogs, and here they are again in that same spot. This caught my eye, Chip. Indiana opened as a 15-point favorite in this contest. It's now down to 11 and 11.5. Are the bettors or the general public or the books anticipating a little bit of a letdown after playing at Ohio State and now taking on Maryland, who typically has been a doormat in the Big Ten over the last couple seasons?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. And when you said 15, I was sort of like taken back a little bit. And mentally, psychologically, can the Hoosiers be ready for this one? I mean, they had to bring everything to the table last week, and they fought gallantly, down 21 a couple different times in the games, and they closed the gap and even had a opportunity to have the ball to tie the score at the end if they had a decent enough offense. But, a couple of weeks ago, you and I both, I don't know if it's, I know I was convinced that Maryland was going to get blown out by Ohio State, and we lost that game and didn't get a chance to play against the Terrapins. And since then, they've had 2 weeks to get ready. And I think that those 2 weeks have helped them. And the fact that Indiana has to play right after this Ohio State game last week, where emotionally, psychologically, this was their game. This was their big game. And I think they met their Waterloo there. And I don't know if they can psychologically be ready and be psyched and be at the same level for this game. And I think the odds makers knows that, Ross, and that's why that number has just dramatically dropped. 4 points, that's a huge, huge drop.
Hey, look, there's a human element, whether you're a 20-year-old kid or a 28-year-old seasoned pro. You broke that long losing streak against Michigan. Then you face an Ohio State team that you lost 26 in a row to. You find yourself rated in the top 10 for the first time since the late 60s. You go to Columbus. You almost overcome a huge deficit. You didn't quit. Your ranking didn't sink at all, basically. You went from number 9 to number 12 after coming off a loss. And now you're playing a Maryland team that hasn't played in a few weeks, like Chip said, and hasn't had a very good reputation since it joined the Big Ten in terms of winning. So do I see a letdown? I can't help but think that there's going to be a letdown. To what degree, I don't know. But I think this is a dangerous spot for Indiana is what I'm trying to say, Chipper. And if they come out and they blow Maryland out in this situation, I'm going to tip my cap to them because that would show me a lot of character on this team.
Well, you know what? Maryland's got 2 of 2.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, he can play. I think the kid can play. And I think that has given Maryland a little impetus and a little confidence in themselves. And maybe they think they can play with these guys because, like you said, they were 2 double-digit underdogs and came back and won those games. So why not?
All right, 2 quick opinions here because we're running short on time. We actually have a couple minutes. Colorado at USC. Colorado off to a good start under new head coach Mel Tucker. 2 upset wins to start the season. USC escaped their first 2 games, looked pretty good in their last game. They're 3-0. Colorado 2-0. USC rated number 19, opened as a 13.5-point favorite, now down to 10.5. The game is at USC, Chip.
Yeah, a large number. Colorado's shown that they can play. They pretty much dominated UCLA in the first half and their first victory, and Bruins came back a little bit in the second half. But 2 big victories, the points here. USC hasn't been really good with the points, have they? Have they covered yet?
They covered last week, but they did not cover as double-digit favorites in their first 2 games. Actually, they escaped and were very lucky to win both of those games. So. They may have found their footing last week, but this is a Colorado team that's proven they can move the ball offensively, Chip, and play with the best. They beat UCLA to open the season. They pulled another upset in week 2, I think, against Washington State, if I'm not mistaken. But in any event, this should be a very good matchup. One last matchup, Chip. Alabama and Auburn, the big rival game in the state of Alabama. I think Alabama, I'll say it right out, I think Alabama is going to crush this team. That's just my opinion. Look, they're playing with revenge, losing last year at Auburn in a close game. Alabama right now is clicking on all cylinders, Chip. Matt Jones certainly is shaping up to be one of the best Alabama quarterbacks, or one in that elite group of Alabama quarterbacks. Alabama minus 24. Your quick take, Chip.
Quickly, I know that I think Saban tested for the virus again, so he will not be on the sideline, which will diminish the Crimson Tide's abilities. So I think they'll only win 55-3.
I thought you could only get COVID once. So,
I don't know, but Bo Nix is not my favorite, and I think that if they can't, they're not going to be able to run the ball against Alabama. If they can't pass the ball, and Nix, I don't think has the capabilities of doing that. He's like a poor man's Tim Tebow in my mind, the way I see him.
Yep. Second coming of Johnny Manziel is what
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
to say. And Auburn, they'll probably have to get one-dimensional if they fall behind. They probably won't be patient enough to stick with the run. And even though, like Chip just said, they probably won't have any success running the ball. Chipper, got to make this quick. I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Folks, you can get our NFL picks for Thanksgiving right now at chipwins.com or rbwins.com. That's chipwins.com or rbwins.com. We'll be back Friday for our NFL show. And until then, I'm Ross Benjamin and for Chip Chirimbes. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Good luck and God bless.